Hey guys, Brent Hull here. Got a very special video today with my buddy Richard, FinishCarpentryTV. If you're not following him, you need to. Talking about shops. We've just been out of my shop, saw the big shop. Here's a small shop and a really efficient one. I want to talk to you about how I got started in my brother's garage, very similar to this. Come join me. Okay, so this is a companion video, guys. I want you to go to Richard's channel, watch his, and what's gonna happen is you're gonna have me coming down, remembering how I started in a small shop, and then Richard going out to my shop. So you'll get a different perspective watching his video on his channel and mine. They're companion videos, they work together, check them out. Okay, so when I started in 1993 here in Fort Worth, I started in my brother's garage, which is a 1920s bungalow, right? It was detached from the house. It was a 2-car sliding door deal, okay? Now, I had a table saw, a joiner, planer, and a shaper. And obviously when you're working in a space that's 20 by 20, I had to like open a door to get the wood to plane out the door. And I was always doing kind of production stuff. So wood storage was a big deal. Dust collection was always a question mark how I was going to do that. And what you've done here is you've got this machine, which is like a 3-in-1, 4-in-1, and then you've got your cut station. You got it set up cool. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, so this is kind of a dream for me. This is my first shop to ever set up, and just watching guys like you know, kind of get into that intricate millwork stuff. I've always wanted to kind of tackle that because I'm, you know, like a field trim installer. So this right here, setting this up, I had one thing in mind, and really, and we could talk about this, but setting this up, I was thinking like, what is my goal with this? And I think setting up any shop, you need to think about what are you trying to accomplish?
No doubt.
And asking myself that question here, it was one thing. This whole purpose of this shop is to renovate and remodel the house that it's attached to. This right here is my miter saw. Now I'm typically a DeWalt guy, but for the purpose of saving space, because in this 20 by 20 space, real estate is prime everywhere. But with this saw, it has the rails forward. So when I turn this saw, I can get it really close to the wall, and I can get this whole miter station shoved up against the wall, leaving me more space out here in the floor to actually do work and have other machines. So this is a Makita miter saw. I've got this on these 2 Milwaukee rolling workbenches floating on some butcher block in the middle. So this is perfect. I leveled it all up. I've got a fence here made by a company called Track Tubes, and that's cool. It's got a stop block to it. My computer's set up here, and this is real great because if I ever want to know how to do something, I can just pull this up. I got my keyboard here, and I was watching this this guy earlier. He was doing something. I don't know if he really knows what he's doing, but yeah, I can watch Brent and make sure I'm doing stuff the right way.
As a mill worker, okay, you have to think about how you're moving wood through the shop. And one of the first things you do is you have to cut wood to length, which is what basically this station does. It's so cool that he got this because I've actually seen garages where they cut a hole for the slide saw to go in and out of the wall for exactly the purpose he's talking about, so it doesn't kick too far forward. So he has his cut station right here, and one of the first things you do when you're milling wood is you cut wood to length, right? So if you're making a door like Richard did here, made that door, you got a cutoff station. So this is it. His extra storage down here is awesome. It's so efficient. I mean, you always need storage, you always need clamps. I see you got a clamp bar there. You've really done it efficiently.
And to your point, so you mentioned earlier, you know, having to set something up strategically to have it run outside because you don't have enough space in a 20 by 20 space. I strategically put this here so I can open that door and have moldings go out. Our moldings are 16 foot long. So I open that door and I can have the whole side of that molding out the door while I make a cut here.
Yeah,
so that was a thought, putting this whole thing here.
And he's done some other things, like he's got his things up on legs. See how the floor in the garage will shift down. He's actually put these on stands, so he's got a level surface here, right? So that was really smart.
Yeah, and then having this space under here too, the way I've got this set up, I've got this 11-gallon Makita vacuum here, Bluetooth connection for dust extraction. So when I pull the trigger on that saw, dust is, you know, there's lingering dust a little bit, but most of it is sucked up into the vacuum, which is awesome.
Yeah, and you'll notice, I mean, You probably cleaned this before it came.
Definitely did.
This is, you could eat off this floor. This really clean, and dust collection's a big deal. I remember when I was in my brother's garage, I didn't have a dust collection, and it was always one of those things I really wanted. We didn't have the Bluetooth technology when in 1950 when I started, 1993. But you've got a big collection for dust collection, which is a big deal. And if you start milling stuff, I mean, you know, dust goes everywhere, and so dust collection's huge, and you've got it solved a couple different ways.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. I've got this one dedicated to the saw because it's just convenient to have it over here. And then for the rest of the machines, this is a Harvey Gyro Air G700. This is perfect for a small shop, and the cool thing about this, it's all on a remote. So I can be standing anywhere. Let's say I want to make a cut at the table saw. I can just hit that and it'll turn on. I've got dust extraction.
I want to talk about some other things, just because the other thing is like what tools do you put in your shop, right? Like, why did you buy these machines? And so you think about the, you know, pieces that you need in order to build a shop. You got to have cutoff. You got to have table saw for ripping things down. The planer joiner thing, right, to thickness it, and then the bandsaw. I mean, those are really, you know, a shaper would be the other one. You've got a router table, right? And so you can now shape, cut, plane, join, right? This is kind of the starting set, right?
Yeah, everything here is pretty much, like you said, like essential.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then to that point, not having a lot of space, but needing all those machines, you know, a combination unit is perfect. So this is the machine I chose to buy right here. This is a SCM Minimax Lab 300P, which basically means it's a 4-in-1 machine with the capabilities of 5-in-1. So basically a table saw, spindle shaper, a joiner, and a planer all in one.
My goal, you were talking about goals earlier, like why did you do it? My goal was always to have a bigger shop. So I have the shaper, which is there. I have a separate machine for all of these different parts and pieces because I always plan to do more production, right?
Right.
And so our first jobs were like doors for a depot or doors for a courthouse or a school. And I had a lot of milling to do, right? And so having a machine like this where I'd have to set up and break down and set up and break down wasn't efficient, right? And so then you get into this efficiency thing, but this is a kick-ass, you know, starting tool. So one, he bought SCM stuff, it's Italian, it's good stuff, right? And so buying good tools matters.
Well, especially for me coming from job site to this, I mean, it is just smooth as butter.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But yeah.
Yeah, and that would be the next kind of tier as you step away from field site kind of building. If you've ever tried to cut on a table saw, the field table saw, I mean, the blade's like, you know, it's just, it's a mess. And then when you do in a precision machine like this, you get almost a glue line. Lumber storage is also something. I mean, storage in general is hard in a shop like this, but you've got the bars in the wall, you're hanging lumber up there. That's really smart. But again, it gets into, you've got a lot of trim material. You're doing a lot of trim stuff. Mine would have all been rough lumber, right? And so just kind of depending on what you're going to need.
Yeah, and the intention for that is again to have stuff staged for whenever I'm getting ready to work on a project inside of the house. So the intention is not to have stuff there long, but just to put it up there, get it out of the way because we need the floor space to work. The floor space is critical, you know, like having this all in one, like we've been talking about, it's just a dream come true. Like you mentioned, there is that time where you have to switch over because this table moves around. Like to use the planer, the joiner tables come up. So you got to take this fence off, flip the tables up, flip over a dust collection. Takes another minute or so, whereas stuff like with what you're doing, you want to be able to just go from, you know, the shaper to the joiner. You may have noticed this is not a traditional American style table saw. This is actually a European sliding saw. So there's a lot of functionality that this thing has. It's got this, what they call a wagon that goes along this track right here with an articulating arm. And this saw right here is about the max I could get in a space like this. I probably could have went a little bit bigger, but a typical 2-car garage, this is about as much as I wanted to do because then it just becomes a gigantic machine, you know.
Yeah, so and another thing about this is we call it a panel saw. We've got a big one at the shop by Altendorf. So, you know, it's for cutting plywood, right? If you're a cabinet shop having a machine like this would make a lot of sense, because if you've tried to cut a 4x8 sheet of plywood on a table and try to get it in there without going, you know, it's a mess. And so having a machine like this, again, depending on the type of work you're doing, I never did a lot of cabinet work. And so building boxes, right, wasn't my ideal. And so the traditional stuff, that, you know, that's a 1950s and after way of building, and we're building more traditional things. So I didn't need the panel saw, but it's great that you have it here.
Yeah, and you can take off this, you know, these attachments up here, and then you've got basically an American style table saw.
Well, and another thing that guys did, I don't know if they're still doing it, they were certainly doing it when I was starting, is they would have every machine like that would be on wheels. And so you hit this cam, and the thing you slide over and you'd put it away, and so that you could move machines. So all the machines might be on that wall. And sometimes, guys, people are actually still parking in their garage and stuff. And so you need that room, and you need to be able to move them around. So that's another way of kind of, you know, moving machines around.
The dust collector is on caster, so I can move that around.
Now, notice you don't have compressed air.
Yeah, I'm using all cordless tools, and to clean stuff out, I just use the job site blower that I blow dust off with.
Show me how hard this thing's to, like, if there's a joiner, what if I wanted to plane it? What would I do?
So you have to take these fences off. These just have knobs right here. So this comes up. And then I usually just set this to the side. I'm actually getting this company that makes this machine, they make like a trolley cart where you can put all the accessories on. So that'll be coming. Then you've got the table saw fence. So this comes off the same way. And I usually just set these to the side. This guard right here, I just pull this back. These two tables come up, and then we have our planer.
Right, so here's your cutting head, right? Here's your wheels to push the thing through. There's your brake arms. So it's set up like a traditional planer, right? But then it just locks in place, which is pretty slick.
So it's really not that big of a deal. And then
But then you're limited, what do you get, 12 inches here?
Yeah, you have 12 inches. So
and we'll see at our shop, we've got, you know, 24, right? And so those things it's bigger, right? Yeah. And so why would you need it bigger? Well, we're doing more wood, or you're doing different, bigger pieces of wood, tabletops, different things like that. The other thing that happens with site tools is they're made of stamped steel, right? And there's not cast iron or cast steel in there. And these heavy forgings and castings give the machine stability, means when you plane things, it doesn't, right? And so,
oh yeah, it's solid.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
You know, in my career, what happened is that I started in my brother's garage. I ended up buying the warehouse that I'm still in for our showroom, and where we do buildings and brew. That was my next shop, right? It was 8,000 feet, but I couldn't afford it all and didn't have enough machines to put it in all. So I was over on the far right side, which is still the warehouse space, 1,500, 1,000 feet. So if this is 20 by 20, that's 400 feet, very tight space. I went to about a 1,500, 2,000. And then eventually it took over that whole space. We were about 8,000 for a long time, 15 years. And then we moved out to the shop that's just 25,000 feet, right? And so there are some rules in building the shops. Like one of the rules was, which we broke for years, was 1,000 square feet per man. So we had 20 guys in that 8,000 square foot space. And so we were jam-packed. We didn't have a lot of room for storage, and so we'd get a big job, and it's like, well, where do we put the doors and windows we've built? You know, where do we put that? And so now we've got more space, and again, we're running out of space. It'll be interesting to see how long that space lasts us. And so, anyway, there's just these progressions. The other thing I heard early on is that in a mill shop, you cannot grow like this, okay? You grow like this. And we found that to be true for us, because the investment we needed to make to get that next round of machines meant that we couldn't stay at that same volume for very long. We had to kick up, make an investment, get a bigger shop, get different machines, then kick up again. So another thing that's kind of, you might be hitting your head up against a wall of size or volume that you may need to step up to get to that next step.
So it's almost like you just have to dive into the next phase.
You really do, and you know, it's a conversation you and I had, and I think we're going to have another video on it, just kind of how do you grow, you know, what steps do you take to try to get there. These are all decisions you're making when you're setting up your first shop, just like you were doing. Hey, this isn't really a production shop, this is for redoing that.
One thing I really like in a shop space is natural light. I don't want to feel like I'm being closed off, you know, like in a box, because I feel like that natural light inspires you to kind of see what's outside going on. So it's nice that this window is here. When I close the garage doors, it does have windows on it, and I have them open most of the time. And then the door that I built, I put windows on it. And then here, right here, I have an opening here that I want to make some casement windows for. Now these will probably be 5-year windows. I don't know if they'll be 100-year windows, but I definitely want to give it a shot and try to make some stuff. So really this whole space is just me trying stuff I've never tried. Never made a door, never made a window. So I'm slowly gonna make stuff in here and then go to the laundry room, go into the living room, and kind of work my way out. So
yeah, no, it's awesome. I love that. And you have to, in my opinion, to get better, you have to try new things. Okay guys, so small shops, big shops, right? I know a lot of you follow me are like, kind of how did you get started? What happened early on? Richard and I are going to do another video on just kind of growth and what that looks like, but it starts with a shop like this, and you kind of hear it in our conversations. There are strategies that you should take and kind of what you want to grow to, you know, if you want to grow, the kind of furniture, the kind of things that you're making, whether it's doors or windows or cabinets or whatever, will determine the kind of machines you get. But this is a challenging space, rewarding space too, right? I mean, it's awesome to come out here and work on stuff. Hopefully you guys have some insight into kind of how to put your shop together. Direct message me or send me an email or type a message down below. I try to answer all of those. Be sure to follow Richard on FinishCarpentryTV. He's very funny, he does great videos, very talented. He's been doing this for a long time. Be sure to follow me, Hull Millwork Hull Homes. Sign up for the newsletter, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.